All right, hello and welcome back. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, and we are continuing with our security engineer course slash series. This is going to be episode 2, day 2, and we are going into security principles today. We did security engineer intro in day 1 as an intro, obviously. And this is all part of the introduction to security engineering module of the security engineer pathway of TryHackMe. And this is what it looks like inside the actual room that we're going to be in. So we have the intro, we have the CIA triad, the DAD triad, or DAD, I don't know what that stands for yet. We have fundamental concepts of security modules, or models, excuse me, defense in depth, ISO IEC 19249, zero trust versus trust but verify, threat versus risk, and of course the conclusion. And all of this stuff is going to be time stamped in the description and in the sections below. So if you wanted to skip around or if you wanted to get access to specific parts of this, you could do so. If you are studying for your security engineer or security analyst certification or pen test plus or ethical hacker, any of those things, I do encourage you to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell and drop a comment if you have any questions. It would be very useful to you, in my humble opinion, to actually be a part of our community, because all we talk about here is security analysis and cybersecurity and ethical hacking, pen testing, all that stuff. And all of those things are actually directly applicable to you and your certification exams. And everything that we talk about here is actually covered inside of the certification exams. And more importantly, it's covered inside of your day-to-day activities when you become a security engineer or a security analyst. So I think it'll actually be a very useful resource to you. But as an extra benefit, it would just be awesome to have you as a part of our community. We've had a lovely growing community. As I'm recording this, we just passed our first 1,000 subscribers, which is actually a really big deal. It's kind of a big milestone in the world of YouTube. So very excited to have you. It would be amazing to join, for you to join our community. And I respond to all the comments. I try to make content that's specific to everything that people are looking for here. So I try my best to actually make this channel valuable, and I think you'll get a lot of good value out of it. So without further ado, let us go into the introduction of the security principles room. All right, security has become a buzzword. Every company wants to claim its product or service is secure. But is it? So before we start discussing the different principles, it's vital to know the adversary against whom we are protecting our assets. Are you trying to stop a toddler from accessing your laptop or from making purchases on Amazon when they shouldn't? One of my friends, actually, his kid did that, and he didn't realize until he saw his credit card bill, and there was like $1,200 worth of purchases that happened from a video game, a game that was downloaded on the cell phone that he gave to the kid. And so the kid just bought a bunch of, fake money from inside the game using real money. And, he didn't realize what was happening until he saw his credit card bill. And he's like, holy shit. And obviously they wouldn't refund him because the kid it was crazy. It was like a really big deal. Actually, I don't know if they refunded him or not, but that's a real thing. Like a toddler using your phone to make purchases and shit. It's not cool. Are you trying to protect a laptop that contains technical designs worth millions of dollars? Using the exact protection mechanism against toddlers and industrial espionage actors would be ludicrous. Consequently, knowing our adversary is a must so we can learn about their attacks and start implementing appropriate security controls. So it's very, very important. It's impossible to achieve the perfect security stance because no solution is 100% secure. So what we got to do is improve the security posture to make it more difficult for the adversaries that are attacking us to gain access. Since we can't protect everything, we need to at least protect the ways that we think these adversaries are going to attack us. The objective of this room is to explain security functions for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Present the opposite of the security triad, which is disclosure, alteration, and destruction and denial. So that's what DAD stands for. Introduce the fundamental concepts of security models such as Bell-LaPadula model, explain security principles such as defense in depth, zero trust, and trust but verify, introduce ISO IEC 19249, and explain the difference between vulnerability, threat, and risk. So it is an introductory room, so that all sounds pretty basic, but if you haven't gone through any of that stuff, or if you don't have a certification in CYSA or anything like that, all of those things should be new to you. So we are going to go to the CIA triad. CIA, as you can see here, is not the Central Intelligence Agency. It is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And we do have a site that's attached to this, so let's launch that site real quick too. Over here, it says, before we can describe something as secure, we need to consider the better way, we need to consider better what makes up security. When you want to judge the security of a system, we look at it in terms of this. So confidentiality ensures that only the intended person or recipient can access the data. Integrity ensures that the data can't be altered or the system can't be altered. And availability aims to ensure that the system or service is actually available when it's needed, right? So that's essentially what it stands for. Confidentiality could apply to a file or usernames or client information, anything like that. Integrity could be the actual integrity of the data itself or the system that hosts the data, or the integrity of the network that hosts the system, all of that. And then you have availability to ensure that the system or service or the data is available when it's needed. And I don't know exactly what this, oh, I see. So they're changing the price of this, right? So the price of this is actually 20 euros. I think that's a euro. I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's maybe. If it's not, my bad. But then, they changed the information on here and made it for 200 so they could keep that extra 180, right? If we look at it a little bit further, this is what we can kind of break this down to, this specific scenario right here. This is what it breaks down to. During online shopping, you expect your credit card number to be disclosed only to the entity that processes the payment. If you doubt that your credit card information will be disclosed to an untrusted party, you will most likely refrain from continuing with the transaction. Moreover, if a data breach results in the disclosure of personally identifiable information, PII, including credit cards, the company will incur huge losses on multiple levels. Lawsuits, clients leaving them and never using them again, a lot of stuff, right? After filling out your order, so integrity, after filling out your order, if an intruder can alter the shipping address you've submitted, the package will be sent to someone else. Without data integrity, you might be very reluctant to place your order with the seller. Availability. To place your online order, you will either browse the store's website or use its official app. If the service is unavailable, you won't be able to browse the products or place the order. If you continue to face such a technical issue, you might eventually give up and start looking for a different online store. So that's how it actually affects the online shopping experience. Let's look at how it affects patient records and systems related to hosting patient records. So according to various laws in modern countries, healthcare providers must ensure and maintain the confidentiality of medical records. This is called HIPAA. Consequently, healthcare providers can be held legally accountable if they illegally disclose their patients' medical records. The integrity is, if a patient record is accidentally or maliciously altered, it can lead to the wrong treatment being administered, which in turn can lead to a life-threatening situation. Imagine somebody getting a piece of medication that they're not supposed to, or imagine somebody's medical records saying that this person needs surgery, and they go under the knife and they perform surgery on a person that never even needed the surgery. That's crazy. So hence the system would be useless and potentially harmful without ensuring the integrity of medical records. Availability. When a patient visits a clinic to follow up on their medical condition, the system must be available. An unavailable system would mean that the medical practitioner cannot access the patient's records and consequently won't know if any current symptoms are related to the patient's medical history. The situation can make the medical diagnosis more challenging and error-prone. The emphasis does not need to be the same on all three security functions. One example would be a university announcement. Although it is usually not confidential, the document's integrity is critical. So looking at beyond CIA, so past the confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad. Bunch of pizzas come in. I didn't order all these pizzas, right? So we can think of authenticity. Authentic means not fraudulent or counterfeit. Authenticity is about ensuring the document file data is from the claimed source. Non-repudiation. Repudiate means refusing to recognize the validity of something. Non-repudiation ensures that the original source cannot deny that they are the source of a particular document, file, or data. This characteristic is indispensable for various domains such as shopping, patient diagnosis, and banking. These two requirements are closely related. The need to tell authentic files or orders from fake ones is indispensable. Moreover, ensuring that the other party cannot deny being the source is vital for many systems to be usable. In online shopping, depending on your business, you might tolerate attempting to deliver a t-shirt with cash on delivery and learn later that the recipient never placed such an order. However, no company can tolerate shipping 1,000 cars to discover that the order is fake. In the examples of a shopping order, you want to confirm that the said customer indeed placed this order. That's authenticity. Moreover, you want to ensure that they cannot deny placing this order, and that's non-repudiation. So they can't go back on their word, right? As a company, if you receive a shipment of 1,000 cars, if you ship a shipment order of 1,000 cars, you need to ensure the authenticity of this order. Moreover, the source should not be able to deny placing the order. Without authenticity and non-repudiation, the business cannot be conducted. This is an example, Parkerian Hexad. In 1998, Don Parker proposed the Parkerian Hexad, a set of 6 security elements. They are availability, utility, integrity, authenticity, confidentiality, and possession. We've already covered 4 of those elements: availability, integrity, authenticity, confidentiality. So let's talk about utility and possession. Utility focuses on the usefulness of the information. For instance, a user might have lost the decryption key to access a laptop with encrypted storage. Although the user still has the laptop with its disks intact, they can't access them. In other words, although it's still available, the information is in a form that is not useful, meaning there is no utility. Possession is a security element that requires that we protect the information from unauthorized taking, copying, or controlling. For instance, an adversary might take a backup drive, meaning we lose possession of the information as long as they have the drive. Alternatively, the adversary might succeed in encrypting our data using ransomware, which also leads to the loss of possession. Because if you get your drive back but you can't access it, then you have no possession of the data, right? So click the view site and answer the 5 questions. What is the flag that you obtained at the end? So here we go. Let's look at this here. Security principles, question 1 of 5. As the troops got deployed, the leader stressed that they should not communicate their location to anyone while the mission was ongoing. Which security function did the leader want to have? And that is confidentiality. One hotel is stressing that the internet over its Wi-Fi network must be accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Which security pillar is this? That would be availability. At a police checkpoint, the police officer suspected that the vehicle registration papers were fake. Which security function does that lack? That would be integrity. 2 companies are negotiating a certain agreement. However, they want to keep the details of the agreement secret. Which security pillar are they emphasizing? Confidentiality. You went to cash out a check, and the bank teller made you wait for 5 minutes as they confirmed the signature of the check's issuer. Which security function is the bank teller checking? Integrity. And just like that, we got our first flag here. So CIA triad, and there we go. So we're good. Oh, we unlocked the streak freeze. Oh, this is actually something that so I was on like 130-day streak, and then I got busy last week and I wasn't able to do any labs or anything, and I lost my streak. So this is my first 7-day streak back after I lost my initial streak. I was so pissed about that. I'm back. I'm at 7 days now. I was unbelievably pissed about that. You have no idea. But yeah, it happens to the best of us, I guess. So, all right, moving on to the DAD. So I'm going to close this and let's go to DAD. The DAD, disclosure, alteration, and destruction denial, is basically the opposite of CIA. So, disclosure is the opposite of confidentiality. Information gets disclosed, it's no longer confidential. Alteration is the opposite of integrity. The check is indispensable, right? If the check has been altered, it's no longer integrity. It doesn't have integrity. Destruction denial is the opposite of availability, and DOS stands for denial of service. And that's a really big type of an attack that's done against a lot of big organizations, because all they have to do is just take their systems down and deny the availability of the service, and the company takes a really big hit, right? So, disclosure, as in most modern countries, healthcare providers must maintain medical records confidentiality. As a result, if an attacker succeeds in stealing some of these medical records and dumping them online to be viewed publicly, the healthcare provider will incur a loss due to the data disclosure attack. For alteration, consider the gravity of the situation. If the attacker manages to modify patient medical records, this alteration attack might lead to the wrong treatment being administered. Consequently, the alteration attack could be life-threatening. We already talked about that. Destruction denial, consider the case where a medical facility has gone completely paperless. If an attacker manages to make the database systems unavailable, the facility will not be able to function properly. They can go back to paper temporarily, however, the patient records won't be available. This denial attack would stall the whole facility. Protecting against disclosure, alteration, and destruction is of utter significance. That's kind of the whole purpose of security teams. This protection is equivalent to working to maintain confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, two sides of the same exact coin. Protecting confidentiality and integrity to an extreme can restrict availability, and increasing availability to an extreme can result in losing confidentiality and integrity. Good security principles implementation require a balance between those three. The attacker managed to gain access to customer records and dump them online. What is this attack? That is called disclosure. And a group of attackers were able to locate both the main and the backup power supply systems and switch them off. As a result, the whole network was shut down. And what is that called? That is called destruction and denial. Very good. And now we can move on to the next piece here, which is fundamental concept of security modules. This one has a site attached to it as well. And so we've learned that the security triad is represented by confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA. One might ask, how can we create a system that ensures one or more security functions? The answer would be in using security models. In this task, we will introduce three foundational security models. We have the Bell-LaPadula model, the Biba integrity model, the Clark-Wilson model. So Bell-LaPadula sounds like medulla oblongata, something like that. The Bell-LaPadula model aims to achieve confidentiality by specifying three rules: simple security property, star security property, and discretionary security property. Simple, as referred to as a no read up, it states that a subject at a lower security level cannot read an object at a higher security level. This rule prevents access to sensitive information above the authorized level. Star is referred to as the no write down. It states that a subject at a higher security level cannot write to an object at a lower security level. This rule prevents the disclosure of sensitive information to a subject of lower security. And discretionary uses an access matrix to allow read and write operations. An example access matrix is the one that we see right here. Subject 1 can write but has no access to object B. So they can write to object A but no access to object B. Subject 2 can read and write object A and can only read object B, right? So this sounds like this is kind of the higher level person and this is the lower level person. The first two properties can be summarized as a write up, read down. You can share confidential information with people of higher security clearance, write up, and you can receive confidential information from people with lower security clearance, read down. There are certain limitations to the Bell-LaPadula module. For example, it was not designed to handle file sharing. Now, the BIBA model aims to achieve integrity by specifying two main rules: simple integrity and star integrity. Simple is referred to as no read down. A higher integrity subject should not read from a lower integrity object. The star is referred to as a no write up. A lower integrity subject should not write to a higher integrity object. These two properties can be summarized as read up, write down. The rule is in contrast with the Bella-Padula model, and this should not be surprising as one is concerned with confidentiality while the other is concerned with integrity. The BIBA model suffers from various limitations. One example is that it does not handle internal threats, so insider threats, it does not handle it. And then we have the Clark-Wilson model. It aims to achieve integrity by using the following concepts: constrained data item, unconstrained data item, transformation procedures, integrity verification procedures. So constrained data item refers to the data type whose integrity we want to preserve. Unconstrained refers to all data types beyond CDI, such as user and system input. Transformation procedures are programmed operations such as read and write and should maintain the integrity of the constrained data items. Integrity verification procedures check and ensure the validity of the constrained data item. We covered only three security models. I keep calling it modules. The reader can explore many additional security models. Examples include Brewer and Nash, Goguen, Messiger, Sutherland, Graham, Denning, Harrison, Russo, and Ullman. And these are good to read up on. So feel free to look those up. I'm not going to do that in this particular video, but feel free to look into that. So click on the view site and answer the 4 questions. What is the flag that we obtained at the end? So this is our site for, which model does no read down. So which model dictates no read down? So let's see that. Bella-Padula has no read up right here. BIBA model has no read down. Which model states no read up? And we already got that, which is Bella-Padula. Which model teaches no write down? And no write down is also Bella-Padula. Bella-Padula. Which model forces no write up? So it forces no write up, and that is the BIBA model. And they didn't even ask us about the Clark-Wilson model, but it's all good. We got our answers. We can now graduate and move on to the next piece right here. So there we go. That was it for fundamental concepts of security models. Let's now talk about defense in depth. Defense in depth. Look at this beautiful blueprint here. We got a locked door, another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and we got 2 cameras on this side, which means that this is a really important entrance here. And it looks like it opens up to another little lobby area that opens up to the main area here. And then we have a locked door that opens up here. This seems like it's a window. That seems like a window, and this looks like a window. So yeah, this is a very basic environment. Although I wonder why they don't have cameras on the back entrance. That's interesting. Defense in depth refers to creating a security system of multiple levels, hence it's called multi-level security as well. Consider the following analogy. You have locked a drawer where you keep your important documents and pricey stuff. The drawer is locked. However, do you want this drawer locked to be the only thing standing between a thief and your expensive items? If we think of multi-level security, we could prefer that the drawer be locked, the relevant room be locked, the main door of the apartment be locked, the building gate be locked, and you might even want to throw in a few security cameras along the way. Although these multiple levels of security cannot stop every thief, they would block most of them and slow down the others. So very basic to understand. Multiple levels of security, right? Really easy. So that's defense in depth. So let's look at the ISO IEC 19249 standard here. The International Organization for Standardization, whatever, ISO, and the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, have created ISO IEC 19249. In this task, we'll brush briefly upon it, which is Information Technology Security Techniques, Catalog of Architectural and Design Principles for Secure Product Systems and Applications. The purpose is to have a better idea of what international organizations would teach regarding security principles. So, it lists 5 architectural principles. We have domain separation, layering, encapsulation, redundancy, and virtualization. If you have watched a lot of my videos or any of my videos, you will have probably heard me refer to some of these things at some point. The machine that I'm on right now is technically a virtualized machine, right? And when we do a view site button right here, that is virtualization. When we do a lot of our attacks, a lot of our pen testing exercises, we attack virtual machines. We use a virtual machine to attack a virtual machine. But it also is virtual data. So if you want to store data inside a cloud so that you can access it from multiple locations, multiple people can access it, so on and so forth, that is also called virtualization. So it's basically the opposite of a physical system or a physical data point, right? So let's look at domain separation from the very top. Every set of related components is grouped as a single entity. Components can be applications, data, or other resources. Each entity will have its own domain and be assigned a common set of security attributes. For example, consider the x66, x86 processor privilege levels. The operating system kernel can run in ring 0, the most privileged level. In contrast, user mode applications can run in ring 3, the least privileged level. Domain separation is included in the Goguen-Mezger model. Layering is when a system is structured into many abstract levels or layers and becomes possible to impose security policies at different levels. Moreover, it would be feasible to validate the operation. So let's consider OSI, Open System Interconnection, very different from the international, oh, excuse me, this is ISO. My freaking dyslexia is kicking in right here. So let's consider OSI, Open System Interconnection model with its 7 layers. So that is the please do not throw sausage pizza away. That's how I remember it. Starting from layer 1 going to layer 7, that's the acronym for it. Please do not throw sausage pizza away. Each layer in the OSI model provides specific services to the layer above it. This layering makes it possible to impose security policies and easily validate that the system is working as intended. Another example from the programming world is disk operations. A programmer usually uses the disk read and write functions to provided by the chosen high-level programming language. The programming language hides the low-level system calls and presents them as a more frequent user-friendly method. Layering relates to defense in depth. It's so crazy that I'm like, I usually don't make this many reading mistakes, and like I'm just reading words as if they're different words right now. It's kind of insane. All right, so encapsulation in object-oriented programming, OOP, we hide low-level implementations and prevent direct manipulation of the data in an object by providing specific methods for that purpose. For example, if you have a clock object, you would provide a method, which is an increment, instead of giving the user direct access to the seconds variable. The aim is to prevent invalid values for your variables. Similarly, in larger systems, you would use or even design a proper application programming interface, an API, that your application would use to access the database. Redundancy. This principle ensures availability and integrity, and we use this a lot. There are many examples related to redundancy. Consider the case of a hardware server with 2 built-in power supplies. If one power supply fails, the system continues to function because there is a redundant power supply. Consider a RAID 5 configuration with 3 drives. If one drive fails, the data remains available using the remaining 2 drives. Moreover, if data is improperly changed on one of those disks, it would be detected via the parity, ensuring that the data's integrity is intact, right? And then we have virtualization. With the advent of cloud services, virtualization has become more common and popular. The concept of virtualization is sharing a single set of hardware among multiple operating systems. Virtualization provides sandboxing capabilities that improve security boundaries, secure detonation, and observance of malicious programs. Now we have the design principles. So these were architectural principles that are provided by the 19249 standard. And now we're going to look at the design principles. So we have the least privilege the attack surface minimization, centralized parameter validation, centralized general security services, and preparing for error and exception handling. So least privilege is informally known as a need to know basis or need to know basis. Need to basis, need to know basis. As you answer the question, who can access that? The principle of least privilege teaches that you should provide the least amount of permissions for someone to carry out in their task and nothing more, or everything that they need and nothing else, right? For example, if a user needs to be able to view a document, you should give them the read rights without giving them write rights. Attack surface minimization. Every system has vulnerabilities that an attacker might use to compromise a system. Some vulnerabilities are known while others are yet to be discovered. These vulnerabilities represent risks that we should aim to minimize. For example, in one of the steps to harden a Linux system, we could disable any service that we don't need. So if the service is not available, the attack surface, the surface that somebody could attack, is minimized, right? Centralized parameter validation. Many threats are due to the system receiving input, especially from users. Invalid inputs can be used to exploit vulnerabilities in the system, such as denial of service and remote code execution. Therefore, parameter validation is a necessary step to ensure the correct system state. Considering the number of parameters a system handles, the validation of the parameters should be centralized within one library or system. Centralized general security services. As a security principle, we should aim to centralize all security services. For example, we would create a centralized server for authentication. Of course, you might take proper measures to ensure availability and prevent creating a single point of failure. So that's very important, right? So if you only have one central location where things are running and that place crashes, everything is done. So centralized general security services needs to be combined with redundancy, so you have several centralized locations that if one of them goes down, that one single point doesn't crash the entire company, right? Preparing for error and exception handling. Whenever we build a system, we should take into account that errors and exceptions do and will occur. For instance, in a shopping application, a customer might try to place an order for an out-of-stock item. A database might get overloaded and stop responding to a web application. This principle teaches that the systems should be designed to fail-safe. For example, if a firewall crashes, it should block all traffic instead of allowing all traffic. Moreover, we should be careful that error messages don't leak information that we consider confidential, such as dumping memory content that contains information related to other customers. So in the following questions, refer to the ISO IEC 5 design principles above. So we're looking at design principles, not architectural principles, and answer with a number between 1 and 5 depending on the number of the design principle. So which principle are you applying when you turn off an insecure server that is not critical to the business? And we call this, what is it? Attack surface minimization. So that would be number 2. Keyboard, let's go. Your company hires a new sales representative. Which principle are they applying when they tell you to give them access only to the company products? And that would be the first one, which is least privilege. So least privilege. And then finally, while reading the code of an ATM, you noticed a huge chunk of code to handle unexpected situations such as a network disconnection and power failure. Which principle are they applying? And that would be, I'm going to say it's between number 3, which is centralized parameter validation, or number 5, error and exception handling. And I'm going to say 5. Yeah, that's it. Okay, great. All right, so that was that. Now let us go into zero trust versus trust but verify. I mean, the name says it all. But let's read into it and see what this is. Trust is a very complex topic. In reality, we cannot function without trust. If one were to think that the laptop vendor has installed spyware on the laptop, they would most likely end up rebuilding the system. If one were to mistrust the hardware vendor, they would stop using it completely. If we think of trust on a business level, things only become more sophisticated. However, we need some guiding security principles. 2 security principles are these 2. So trust but verify teaches that we should always verify even if we trust an entity and their behavior. An entity might be a user or a system. verifying usually requires setting up proper logging mechanisms. Verifying indicates going through the logs to ensure everything is normal. In reality, it is not feasible to verify everything. Just think of the work it takes to review all the actions taken by a single entity or a person, like micromanaging the hell out of that person, such as internet pages browsed by a single user, for example. This requires automated security mechanisms such as a proxy, intrusion detection, and intrusion prevention systems. Zero trust means you don't trust them at all. So it treats trust as a vulnerability, and consequently it caters to insider-related threats. After considering trust as a vulnerability, zero trust tries to eliminate it. It is teaching indirectly never trust, always verify. In other words, every entity is considered adversarial until proven otherwise. Zero trust does not grant trust to a device based on its location or ownership. This approach contrasts with older models that would trust internal networks or enterprise-owned devices. Authentication and authorization are required before accessing any resource. As a result, if any breach occurs, the damage would be more contained if there was a zero trust architecture and had been implemented. Microsegmentation is one of the implementations used for zero trust. It refers to the design where a network segment can be as small as a single host. Moreover, communication between segments requires authentication, access control list checks, and other security requirements. There's a limit to how much we can apply zero trust without negatively impacting a business. However, this does not mean that we should not apply it as long as it is feasible. So I would say we lead with zero trust and maybe do trust but verify at some point. But if you have a government entity, you probably have zero trust across all of your systems and hosts and networks, right? If you have a bank, for example, you probably have zero trust going on. There is very rarely a situation where trust but verify is done with a government entity like the military or something, because that would be ridiculous. Because as soon as something happens and the action is taken and you have to now monitor them, it would be too late. If there is something that happens and the attacker is faster than your defense team, you would be too late. So zero trust is, I would say, leads the way when it comes down to these two principles. And now we're going to look at the difference between a threat versus a risk versus a vulnerability. So let's look at that. In this case, there are three terms that we need to take good note of to avoid any confusion. A vulnerability means susceptible to attack or damage. In information security, a vulnerability is a weakness. A threat is a potential danger associated with that weakness or vulnerability. The risk is concerned with the likelihood of a threat actor exploiting a vulnerability and the consequent impact on the business. So looking outside of information systems, a showroom with doors and windows made of standard glass has a weakness or a vulnerability due to the nature of glass, right? Consequently, there is a threat that the glass doors and windows can be broken. The showroom owner should contemplate the risk, the likelihood that a glass door or window gets broken, and the resulting impact on that business. Another example directly related to information systems. You work for a hospital that uses a particular database system to store all the medical records. One day, you are following the latest security news and you learn that the used database system is not only vulnerable, but also a proof of concept working exploit code has been released. The released exploit code indicates that the threat is real. With this knowledge, you must consider the resulting risk and decide the next steps. So there's a vulnerability, there could be a threat to that vulnerability, and the risk is how likely is it that this is actually going to happen, and what is the damage that's going to happen if this does happen, right? We're going to look at the details of this stuff in a different room. And that's basically it for the security principles room, and our conclusion goes as such. In this room, we covered various principles and concepts related to security. We should be familiar with the CIA and DAD and other terms such as authenticity, repudiation, vulnerability, threat, risk. We looked at three models on the ISO IEC 19249. We have covered different security principles such as defense in depth, trust but verify, zero trust, And then the shared responsibility model is worth mentioning, especially with the increased reliance on cloud services. Various aspects are required to ensure property security or proper security. They include hardware, network infrastructure, operating systems and applications, and etc. However, customers using cloud services have different access levels depending on the cloud services they use. For example, an infrastructure as a service, IaaS, user has complete control and responsibility over the operating system. On the other hand, a software as a service has no direct access to the underlying operating system. They just use software as a service. Consequently, achieving security in a cloud environment necessitates both the cloud service provider and the user to do their part. The shared responsibility model is a cloud security framework to ensure that each party is aware of their responsibility. And we have now finished, so we can go into cryptography room, which is going to be in part 3 of our little security engineer pathway here. So pretty exciting, and hopefully you learned some value. You got some value out of this. If you are studying for your security engineer, security analyst, Pentest Plus, ethical hacker, any of those certifications, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell of this channel, because all we talk about here is security, ethical hacking, cybersecurity, all that stuff. And I think you will get a lot of value from it. You can use the information here to pass your certification exams, but you can also use the information in your day-to-day job as a security analyst or a security engineer, for example. So it would be lovely and awesome to have you as a part of our community, but I genuinely, firmly believe that you'll actually get a lot of value from joining our community. So I would love to see you in there. I would love to see you in the comment section. If you have any questions, drop them down below, and I will get to them as soon as possible. Apart from that, we are wrapped. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I will see you in the next video. Later.